What's good? It's Vibe Synthetic and welcome back to my channel. And today we'll be talking about the melody stack that you just heard earlier on and how I actually created it. And we're not gonna run through the full detail on how I really make it. I'm gonna show you basically the important features that I use in Vital to create certain sounds within that melody stack itself. Now I'll be running through the pads and also sort of like the pad lead. And I'm also gonna show you the two combinations of my Arps that I use in this melodic stack to show you the different speeds and also the different frequencies that's being used within Vital itself. My intention of this video is actually to make sure that you know how to use Vital and how to fully utilize some of its features to create certain controllable sounds. I mean, let's not waste any more time and let's go through what I have for you in this melodic stack. Now below I do have the timestamps because I really value your time. Now if you're interested to go to the certain parts of the synths that I use in the stack, feel free to click on them. We're going to run through the first synth, which is the pads here. Now we have a bass sound, which is a oscillator 1, which is sort of like a square shape. We have oscillator 2 on a -12 pitch, which is a saw wave kind of shape. And we have also a noise here, which is the HVAC unit. The envelope is looking a little bit like a plug with a high attack, pretty much similar to the release as well. And this will make it sound a little bit more pad-ish because of the release over here. Oh, you hear that? It's actually very sharp towards the higher slope. And you sort of like reduce the attack's power very sharply towards the end. Over here with the release that's dipping. Now, I'm going to turn on the filter so it doesn't sound very loud or very sharp. And you can hear the difference right now with a dirty notch blend. As you can hear, there's a lot of resonances, so how I fixed that was to amplify the resonance in a controlled manner. Now the trick here is to have LFO2 on Vital to sort of like have a square shaped kind of LFO, so it turns on and off. That's where it creates the tremolo effect. This square shape is actually modulating the filter effects cutoff and also the resonance. So the filter effects of what I'm talking about is actually going to the effects here, and if you turn on the filter, it's actually modulating this filter effects cutoff. And if I will go back to the filter that's within the main page, it's actually modulating the resonance on this filter 1. So you actually get to tame the resonances of the sound as a whole on the effect settings and also on the main chain settings when it's affected through filter 1. Let's just turn on this effect on the filter, which is the resonance and the cutoff. So you get that really nice punch and then pull with this pad itself. And the next thing you want to do is to have the LFO2 with the same shape, modulating the envelope 1's decay. So this actually morphs the sound into like a high speed and then a low speed kind of ramp. So let me just demonstrate to you guys by turning them on. And we have like LFO1 with a triangle that I mapped it to a spectral morph on oscillator 1, and also a random LFO that I actually map it to the tempo of LFO1. So if I were to turn on the next synthesizer, which is sort of like a pad plus a one-shot kind of sound, you can actually hear the counter melodies. Now let me just open the piano roll to demonstrate to you guys. I'm going to select this MIDI pattern over here, and I'm going to select this MIDI pattern over here. All of them reach together. You can see the play of long and short notes over here, which actually makes up a lot more depth towards your sound. Yeah. So nice. Now it's more like a bell, but sort of like a lead. At the same time, it also has that less on the high end frequency. It's also a bit like a pad. So let me just show you what happens within this synth in Vital. Now the trick is actually LFO2, which I have a basic sustain ramp. Now this LFO2 is actually modulating the waveframe of oscillator 1, which is changing between these values over here. You also have the distortion amount on oscillator 2, which is actually a wave morph sync that's actually creating this cool stretchy effect on oscillator 2 itself. Basically, I split these two oscillators into filter 1 and filter 2 with a different kind of filter shape. One is sort of like a telephone kind of shape where you have this low and high pass on both sides, while filter 2 you have a high pass that's going to oscillator 2. Now I'm going to turn off the LFOs right now. You can hear that when I turn off the LFO, the sound is pretty much flat, but it's nice too because of the effects here. I have a delay and also an equalizer to sort of like bring down the lows and the highs furthermore. Now, if I were to turn on the LFO, you will notice on LFO 2 when I'm modulating the distortion amount on this wave morph on the sync for oscillator 2 and also the waveframe on oscillator 1, you can sense a bit of movement over here. So let me just demonstrate it to you guys. Yeah, it's sort of like punchy, right? It's also because of LFO1, which you have sort of like a ramp up and then straight away slope down kind of shape, and LFO3, which has a triangle shape. Both of them are actually modulating the filter effects cutoff and the filter 1's cutoff. So it's still controlling within the frequency range of the pad that we did earlier. So it's sort of like gel within that, because after this, on top of this, I'm gonna add an arp. The ups, I have two sections. One is the rolling ups, I call it. The rolling ups is basically everything that runs all the way throughout the time signature within the MIDI grid. Let me just open the MIDI pattern for you. So this is called the running ups. If I were to select these up, as you can see, there are certain gaps here. Again, this is about counter melodies and the notes are a lot more longer as compared to the first ups. You can hear the tit 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 tit, and there's a pause. So that pause actually sort of like compromising with the first arpeggio that came in, which is all the way running throughout the MIDI pattern itself. Now, getting into the specifics of how I created the sound, let's get into the first arpeggio. By the way, all these sounds that I created in Vital, I don't create them from scratch. It's because I use my preset packs to start off with to create the arps, the pads, and the leads as well. And the link to purchase my preset pack is in the description below. I also leave a discount code so that you guys can get this at a very good price. Over here we have the LFO effects and the filters turned off. So I'm going to use a square wave with a unison. We've had 13% detune, 3 voicings. Also, it has a wave morph with an FM from oscillator 2. So oscillator 2 is actually a jaw harp. The FM synthesis is going straight into oscillator 1, and that's what makes this sound pretty unique. And I also turn on oscillator 2 to have that sound combined together while it's also doing the FM synthesis to oscillator 1. I have oscillator 3 running at a triangle shape with also at a unison at 3 voicings and 7% detune, and also a noise sampler, which is a brown noise over here. With just this sound, I have the envelope really at a very low attack and a very low release, so to create that sort of like bouncy one note up. Basically, what I did here was to have the high frequency stand out, and it's still very painful to hear. That's why I introduced one filter over here, which is the filter on the main panel, and of course under the effects I also have a filter. It's all about movement, the next thing. So I'm just gonna make sure that my LFO1 is going to the distortion amount of this wave morph on oscillator 1. Also going to the sample level, which is actually this part, turning on and off the sample. And also the frequency morph amount for this vocode on the spectral morph for oscillator 2. These parameters over here is actually creating movement to your sounds within each oscillator, and I do that by turning it on and off, and doing it on and off is actually using these square waves over here. As As you can hear, it's very subtle but still turning on and off with the frequencies and also the shape of the waveforms on oscillator 2 and oscillator 1. But importantly, on LFO2, I have this sort of like step grid over here. It turns on and off, but when it turns on, it's not fully at 100% level, and this actually goes to the oscillator 3's level. And when this is introduced, you can actually have certain sounds being introduced at certain points of time within the sound of this Arp. For me, the play for this Arp is, since it's very bouncy, the LFOs that I use over here is a lot more like an on and off switch. Yeah, you can hear that bounce, right? Now the last up I'm going to talk about is the running up, and this running up is basically a lot more faster, so the processing will be a lot lesser as compared to the up that we see earlier. Now I played a lot with filters over here, reason being because I want to create another character instead of just doing a low pass and a high pass. I had a comb filter on filter 1, which is actually going from the source of oscillator 1, which has a higher unison value as well. Again, an up envelope looks similarly like this, very sharp kind of shape. With this kind of heavy filtering, especially with a low pass on filter 2 and also the low pass on a comb filter, the volume is actually very soft. So under the effects, I actually have a multi-band compressor to bring the levels up, and I added a chorus and also a delay to add more bounce to these ups itself. Still sounds relatively flat. Now then again, this is the perfect time to actually give a bit of movement. Now I have LFO2, which is an on-off switch as well, that is actually modulating filter 1's cutoff and also the oscillator 2 frequency amount, which is the spectral mode. Very subtle, but at the same time it starts to become like a bell kind of up. Now LFO1, over here you have a basic ramp shape, or like a basic sustain ramp. It's going to the waveframe of oscillator 1, again creating sort of like a characteristic change of the waveform. Also the envelope 1 decay, which is actually pushing the envelope further so that the sound is not constantly sounding like an up. It's actually moving a little bit here and there, but as you can see that the value over here is very minimal. So I try to make it still sound like an up, but still has a bit of movement in terms of the characteristics of its envelope. Lastly, you have LFO3, which is actually going to the wave morph on the sync on oscillator 1. I have this random LFO that goes to the waveframe of oscillator 2 as well, and also going to LFO3's phase, which is this area over here. Actually, the phase of this LFO is telling it where to start within a certain value of this LFO. Now this will create a lot of interesting sounds. It's really a lot of experimentation, but this is where the sound actually suits towards the sound that I want to make. Regardless of the sounds that we make, I hope you take away some of the useful information and some of the useful features that I use in Vital to apply it to your own music production. Before you go, remember to give a like, subscribe, and hit that post notification bell button so that whenever I release any sound design tutorial videos like this, you guys will get notified. My name is Synthetic once again. Happy to be here, and I really like to make more sounds for you. So stay tuned on the next video. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace!